Hello, good morning. Number one morning. Is it a good morning? I don't know. Wrong way. There we go. Okay, well, today we're going to be talking about etymology in a little bit, but I just got here. I just turned on the camera a few minutes ago, so let's just wait a few minutes for people to show up before I start teaching, okay? So, hello. Hello, Jung. Hello, Yuki. Hello, Jandis. Hello, Rana and Nadia. Hello, Zane and Jessica. And the brainy birds. I like that. Hello, everyone. It is 9:56 a.m. and it is November 18th. It's always fun when you do this. When you say the year, it sounds better if you do this. It's 11:18. Let's say it this way. It's November 18th in the year 2025. Years always sound more fun when you put a big echo on them. What year is it? Oh, it's 2025. Doesn't sound very big, but what year is it? It's 2025. I look like I woke up a while ago. That's because I did. I usually wake up pretty early. Sometimes 6, sometimes 5:30. If I'm lucky, maybe I get to sleep till 8. All right. I'm sorry, I'm looking. I know I made another note for more etymology. I just am looking for it. Wait a minute. That's not it either, is it? Is it? No. Nope. Today, like I said, I'm going to be teaching today about etymology again. Oh no, not etymology. At least I think I'm going to be teaching about etymology if I can find my notes. I can't believe I did that. I make so many notes, but I don't organize them well, and then I lose notes. That's what I have to do today. I need to organize my notes. Ooh, maybe this is it. Yeah, okay, I think I found it. Yay! Alright, so I'm going to try to show you how etymology can be practical. I'm gonna try to show how it can be used in so many different areas. I did that a little bit last time. Talking about transportation and food and things like that, right? So I'm going to show you how, there are many, many areas that you can use, etymology to learn about the words. Okay, sorry, I'm reading. Nario! Wow, it has been a long time. What's up, dude? Long time no see. And hello, Carlos. Well, that's a cool name. Is it Ziaula? I'm okay. How are you? Hello, Jaja. We're not doing stage right now. I'm about to start teaching about etymology right now. Okay? Like last time we talked about meals, right? So, what does breakfast mean? What does breakfast mean? Can I please pin the topic? Okay. Let me see. I don't know if I can. I'll try. Let's see. I'll do this. I can pin the topic. I just did, but I made an announcement. But the title is the topic. The title. Always look at the title of my live streams. That's probably the topic. Okay? Now, we were talking about food last time. about etymology of food. Like, for example, the word breakfast. We talked about what does breakfast mean. Breakfast means to break your fast. Okay, when I was a boy, I didn't know the word fast meaning to not eat when I was a boy. The word fast when I was a boy only meant to run quickly, right? To move quickly, to do something quickly was fast. That was the only meaning that I knew. So my brother and I, we used to joke about, my friends and I, when we were little kids, we used to joke about, we're going to have breakfast. We're going to eat breakfast. I need to go eat breakfast. That's really how it should be pronounced, because it's kind of funny. It's weird that we pronounce it breakfast now, but the words are right there. Break fast. That is what it is. So it's weird that we changed the pronunciation for no reason. And the word dinner also means breaking your fast. So dinner and breakfast actually have the same meaning. Okay? The original meaning is the same. Dinner comes from the Latin word disunare, which means to break your fast. Right? And the word lunch is a combination of the word lump, which was what we called a piece of bread. It was a lump of bread. And the word nunchin, which was noon. Nun is the noon part. Noon, chen meaning small meal or small snack. So nunchin was the name for a small meal or small snack around midday. Lump was the word for bread. And when you ate, many times what you ate was bread with soup, and you would eat them together, right? So that was where lunch comes from. Lump and nunchin together becomes luncheon, which became lunch. And then the word dessert. Dessert is a French word that comes, it means, the French word is desservir, which means to clear the table, because dessert is what you bring after you clear the table, right? You eat your food, you eat your meal, and then they clear the table, and then they bring dessert, right? So dessert actually means to clear the table. And supper, supper, supper is another word that means like dinner. It's an evening meal usually. And the word supper is related to the word soup, because that's what we usually would eat. Most people ate soup. So the word soup is related to the word supper. And then the piece of bread, when you take the piece of bread and put the piece of bread into the soup, that is called to sop the bread. Sopping the bread means putting the bread in the soup and then eating that. That's called sopping the bread. So, supper, sop, soup, all related. Lunch comes from lump, comes from nunchin. Yeah. I've grown a beard since you last saw me. Yeah, it happens pretty fast, yeah? So there's a few words right there for food, right? For food, for meals, right? Did you know that the word bread originally didn't mean bread? The word bread originally just meant anything you could eat. A morsel. It was called a morsel. Means a bit, a piece, a small piece of food was called bread. That's originally what the word bread means. Later, they used the word to talk about baked loaves of bread, because what's the most common thing that you eat if you're poor? Bread. Yeah. Okay. What is my favorite food? I don't have a favorite food. I love food. I love to cook. I love to learn about food and food culture and cooking techniques and food history. I cook a lot. So I don't really have a favorite food. I love all kinds of foods. I make yummy stuff all the time. I like it all. What's my favorite breakfast? Masako wants to know. Ooh, I don't eat breakfast. I don't eat breakfast most of the time, actually. Today I had a small breakfast. I made some potato pancakes. I made some potato pancakes with leftover mashed potatoes I had and some other ingredients, and they were yummy. But I don't usually eat very much for breakfast. But if I am going to have a big breakfast and I'm going to eat, I usually do it like maybe 10 o'clock, 10:30, even 11 o'clock. Then I'm ready for a big, heavy American breakfast. So, Masako, what you have to understand is American breakfast foods are really pretty bad. They're unhealthy. They're yummy. They're delicious. But they're not healthy for you. So, I mean, when you're talking about pancakes and you're talking about French toast and waffles and bacon and sausage and eggs, and that's heavy. And do you know why do we eat such heavy breakfast foods? There are two reasons why we eat such heavy breakfast foods. Anyone know? So the reason why is, one, because of, well, really it's kind of the same reason. It's because of farming. Around the 1900s, 1920, 1930, 1940, well, we had the Great Depression, right? In the 20s, we had the Great Depression, and that was a very poor time for America. Everybody was very poor. Almost everybody was really poor, okay? And farmers needed help. A lot of farmers needed help. So they started promoting breakfast foods a lot more. They started promoting the idea that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Don't you remember they told you that? Breakfast is the most important meal of the day. No, it's not. It's not. There is no basis for that statement. Historically, if you look at the history of mankind, all of mankind, there is no basis for that statement. But why do we think that? We think that because they needed us to think that, so we would buy breakfast foods. So, in America, cereal became a huge breakfast food that everybody ate cereal for breakfast, and milk. Milk. Why do Americans drink so much milk? Because they told us that milk is really good for you. Why? Because they wanted to sell a lot of milk. They told us bacon is really good for you. Why? Because they wanted to sell a lot of bacon. So, and now they wanted to sell it because they needed to, because the farmers were poor. So when they first did it, it was a good reason, I think. They were trying to help out. But it was deceptive. It was not honest. Because it's not true. It's just marketing. It's just marketing. They also told us that smoking was good. We know that's not true, right? So, now, if you are a farmer, if you do work on a farm, which was many people back in the day, a long time ago, a lot of people worked on farms. if you work on a farm, then you wake up early in the morning and you have to work in the field all day. So that's why that kind of meal is okay. If you eat eggs and bacon and toast and pancakes and all of that, if you eat that and then you're going out to work in the field for 8 hours, no problem. That's fine. But the problem is, we eat that kind of food, but we don't go work in the fields anymore. We just have a tradition. The food is a tradition now. So that was one thing I loved when I lived in Asia. Breakfast became a completely different meal for me. I could eat food in the morning that wasn't really, really heavy. There were options. There were choices for me. Vegetables in the morning. I was like, wow, I can have vegetables in the morning? I didn't know you could do that. We don't really do. We have potatoes, but we don't really do much else. You know, we have potatoes and eggs and cheese and bacon and ham, and those are farm foods, you know? So, anyway, that's part of the history of the food and the names and the words and all of that, you know? Now, if you like breakfast, that's fine, okay? But what I'm trying to tell you is that everybody is different. It is ridiculous to suggest that everybody should eat the same way, because there are so many different people who need different things, right? So it's ridiculous to think that there are billions of people, but only one diet that's correct. That's weird. That's just weird, right? It doesn't make any sense logically. So we are one race, we are one species, we are one species, sure. But within that species, there is a great deal of variety. So some people need to eat more, some people need to eat less. Some people have a higher metabolism, some people have a lower metabolism. Some people can't eat pork, some people can't eat salty foods, some people can't eat meats. Everybody's different, and that's fine. Eat what you like. Eat what you like. Nala says, Americans usually have simple daily meals while Chinese people cook a variety of different dishes every day. That's not necessarily true, Nala. I make complicated food all the time. I cook a lot. If you cook, then you make whatever you want. And it's not always simple. I make lots of complicated food. Okay? With lots of dishes and lots of vegetables, lots of all kinds of things. Okay? I started cooking when I was 11 or 12, and I love to cook, so I can cook whatever. If you give me a recipe, I'll be fine. But when I lived in Taiwan, for example, I was shocked how few people cooked. Because it's cheap, you can just call and order something. There's a million restaurants right around you in the neighborhood, and for nearly nothing you can have it delivered to your door, so you can get whatever's around. You don't need to cook, right? And you order whatever the restaurants have. Now, if you have a family and you live at home, then sure, if your mom is a good cook, then you eat well. But I know that there are lots of there are not just moms, dads too, but not everybody is a good cook. So when you decide to become a parent, some people are really good parents and some people are not that good. They're just not, right? Well, the same thing is true for when you have children. Now you have to cook for them. Some of you are great cooks and you cook well for your kids. And some of you are not. So, anyway, No, we're talking about etymology. We just started talking about food because we were talking about the etymology of food before. Okay? Some are really lazy for cooking because it's daily work. Yeah, I know. It is. It's really hard work sometimes. But cooking is one of the best things. Cooking is a skill everyone should know. Everyone. It's the food that goes into your body. You should know about it. You should know how it's made. You should know what's in it. You should know how to make it better. You should know what's good and what's not good. Some people don't even know what's good. They've been eating bad stuff for so long that they have no idea what good food even is. You know? Yeah. You just enjoy cooking for your family. Cooking is a way to enjoy life. I totally agree. Which country's culinary techniques am I interested in? All of them. I love food. I don't care. I like the culinary techniques of Earth. Any Earth culinary techniques, I'm good with. The Moon culinary techniques, they're so-so. Techniques from Mars, they're okay, but they're a little salty. But most of the techniques on Earth, I like the techniques of the Earth cooking. Okay, so let's talk more about etymology. What about the word, the word meat. It's funny, the word bread and the word meat both used to mean just something that you ate. Anything that you ate. Okay? So, in Old English, they used to have a word, it was nun mette, which meant noon meat. And meat was not meat. Meat was food. Okay, so the original meaning of bread is just any food, and the original meaning of meat is also just any food. Later, bread became what we know as bread now, and meat became animal muscle, right? That's meat. Yeah. How about the word cheese? Where does the word cheese come from, anyone? You guys know? The word cheese comes from the Latin word caseus, C-A-S-E-U-S. And that's why the Spanish word is queso, and the Italian word is cacio, and I think in there are a few other languages that have a similar spelling, like the Irish spelling and the Welsh spelling are similar too. It's also related to the Germanic and Dutch. Well, those came from the Latin. And actually, it's kind of funny because cheese, the main ingredient of cheese, or one of the main ingredients, is casein, or I think that's how you pronounce it. Let me see. Let me make sure I'm pronouncing it right. Yeah. It's a protein. It's the biggest protein in milk is casein, which is where caseus comes from. Or I should say casein comes from caseus, which is where we get cheese. Cheese! And why do we say cheese when we take pictures? Why do we say cheese when we take pictures? Anyone know? How do you make cheese, Bill? You take milk, and then you add this thing called rennet. Rennet is like a... can't describe it properly. It's a starter that starts the chemical process of separating the whey from the curds in the milk. And then once you separate that, that's when you're beginning the process of making cheese. So it comes from milk. Okay? How about flesh? The word flesh, you want to know where flesh comes from? Well, let's find out. Flesh comes from German, Fleisch, and Old Norse, Flesk, meaning pork or bacon. Well, that's interesting. So the original meaning was just a piece of meat that is torn off. That's the original meaning. Wait a minute, let me read. Yeah, so the original meaning of flesh means any meat that you peel off is flesh. Which makes sense because when you read old stories about medieval stories, they often use the word flesh when they're talking about torture. To peel your flesh from your bones, which is why it's like meat. Yeah. Well, that's a nice story. That's a good way to start our day. A nice medieval death story. And yes, cheese. We say the word cheese because when you say cheese, you should have a wide mouth for the E. The long E sound. E, cheese. So you can practice your long E position by smiling. Okay? And yeah, like the flesh of the fruit, to tear it away. Yeah. Is cheese a healthy food? Bill, that's a complicated question to answer. Technically, probably not, but red meat is really not good for you either, but we eat it, right? It's, put it this way, Bill, consider it kind of like a kind of fat, right? So when we eat anything, there's always some fat in it, and you have to worry about how much fat and what kind of fat is in the food that you're eating, right? If you eat cheese, and I do, I love cheese. I love cheese. There's so many kinds of cheeses. They're so yummy. They're so delicious. But everything in moderation. You have to just not too much, But there are some places, like in France or in certain places in Europe, where people eat a lot of cheese. Every single day they eat cheese, and they seem to be fine. So, diet is such a funny thing, too, because, again, it just depends on where you live and how long you've been there, right? When Asians come to America, if they've never been here and they stay here for a while, it's not uncommon for them to get kind of fat because now they're sometimes eating American food, and you think, oh, well, they're getting fat because they're eating American food. Yeah, okay, maybe it's unhealthy food, but it's also because their body is not used to that kind of food. Right? So when they eat this kind of new food that's got new fats and new starches and carbohydrates and proteins and different combinations of salts and fats, your body doesn't know how to deal with that, and you end up just keeping it more, right? Same thing happened to me when I went to Asia. My body wasn't used to Asian food, and I loved it, and it was delicious, but I ate too much rice, and I got really fat. I love rice, I love noodles. And they eat rice and noodles every day, and they don't get fat. But I ate it every day, and I ended up getting pretty fat. So there's a certain amount of, we'll call it culinary cultural equilibrium that needs to be in balance, you know? And as soon as you move, it's like, oh wow, this is different. You have to really pay attention to your diet when you move to a completely new place, because you have completely new things going into you now. Of course, it's going to be different. Hello, Zoe. How are you? Flesh. Yes, that's the word, flesh. It means like it's like the meat. 就是皮肤跟肌肉一起的 is flesh. Okay? I could say whiskey too. Whiskey, yeah, whiskey is a fun one if you want me to tell you the history of the word whiskey. Whiskey comes from an old Celtic word. I believe it's Celtic if I remember right. Uskabetha. Uskabetha, which the original meaning is water of life. Water of life. Uskabetha, whiskey. So Uskabetha became whiskey, but it means water of life because it was a sacred drink. It was a sacred thing. To make alcohol was considered almost magical because there's a process that takes time, and then when you do it right, it works well, and it's delicious, and it has a property that makes you, euphoric. So many people were very interested in developing alcohols, and they treated them almost like they were a magical potion, like a magical thing that they created. So, water of life. Yeah. Let's see. Are pizza and sushi junk food? Well, sushi I would not call junk food, no. Especially if it's good sushi. No, sushi's really pretty healthy. It's all about good quality rice, but it's high quality fish, usually, So, yeah, it's delicious. Yeah. And wine comes from Latin also, vino, in vino veritas. In vino veritas means in wine there is truth. Because the Greeks and the Persians, and I believe a couple of other Middle Eastern groups a long time ago, they used to believe that any topic that you wanted to argue about, you should argue 2 times. You should argue once sober and once drunk. And if you reach the same conclusions both times, then you know that you're right. I think that's a fun tradition. But pizza can be pretty bad for you depending on what kind of pizza it is. But I would say traditional Italian pizza, if you get a real Italian pizza, it's not that bad for you, I don't think. I mean, it's bread and cheese and tomato sauce with some basil on it. I can think of a lot of worse things than that. Hello, Romana. Hello, Tao. Is yogurt healthy? Is it made of... so yogurt is fermented... Yeah, it's a fermented dairy product. Does it go bad? Bill, do you eat stinky tofu? Stinky tofu is a lot worse than the process of making yogurt. There are many fermented foods around the world. Fermenting the food was a way to keep the food. So, cheese is a process that was made to make a product that lasted longer. Fermenting foods, like pickling things and making yogurt and things like that, or stinky tofu, is a way of preserving the food longer. So it's not bad, Yogurt is pretty good for you. If you get the right kind of yogurt, it has stuff called probiotics in it, which are good for your gut. That's good for your intestines. Probiotics. Fermenting is good. Eating fermented foods has been proven to be pretty healthy for you. Kimchi, sauerkraut, yogurt, things like that, those are all fermented foods that have probiotics in them. Yeah, okay, now let's get back to talking more about some food words. How about the word... did you know that the word milk is actually a verb first? The word milk was a verb first. And then it was a noun. Why is that true? Do you know why that's true? Why did the verb milk come before the noun milk? Was cheese invented by Koreans? No. Cheese was brought to Korea during the Korean War. As far as I know, and I think I'm right, the cheese that is in Korean food was brought to Korea during the Korean War when America was there. Because we brought a bunch of hot dogs and cheese. These were foods that were easily kept. They were stable. You could ship them across the world and it was easy to keep them. So that's why they used them for the military, right? But that food ended up, and it's in the Philippines and in Korean food, it's because of the military, the American military that came there. Spam and things like that, that's from the military. Yeah. But cheese, most of the cheeses in the world were created in Europe. Most of them came out of that tradition. Now, that's not all. There are some examples of other places later that did it. But originally, the early days, it was in Europe, because in Europe is where they had the best conditions for it. Cheese is a very funny thing. To make cheese, there are so many kinds of cheese, but how do you make all these different kinds of cheese? It's not just the recipe. To make cheese, sometimes you need a special kind of mold to make that cheese. So, certain kinds of cheese can only be made where that mold is. And where is that mold? It's in the caves. In the caves. So they would find a cave that had a nice temperature all year. The temperature is nice in the cave. And the humidity is perfect in the cave. And they have this mold in the cave. So they would store the cheese there, and the mold would make the flavor. So the process of making a cheese is not just a recipe. It also requires time and nature. Yeah. Can I explain where disaster and nightmare come from? Sure. Nightmare is the word mare, M-A-R-E, is an old word that means devil or demon or spirit. So a nightmare, the story is a long time ago, they used to believe that there was a little evil devil, evil ghost, a spirit that would come when you were sleeping, and it would steal your breath. It would steal your breath from you. And that is why you have bad dreams. It would give you bad dreams and it would steal your breath, right? That was the... So there are many old pictures of like little demons on your chest when you're sleeping. You know, that was a nightmare. Okay? So that's the original meaning of the word nightmare. It comes from a story about an old demon. The word disaster is two parts. Dis and aster. Dis means bad, and aster means star. So disaster means bad star. And the reason why is because what is a disaster? Disasters are floods and earthquakes and typhoons and hurricanes, and all these things are disasters, right? Natural disasters. And 2,000 years ago, or 5,000 years ago, when you had a big flood, or you had a typhoon, or you had an earthquake, why did you think it happened? Why did the earthquake happen? Oh, the gods must be mad. The gods are mad. And where are the gods? In the stars. The gods are in the stars. So, disaster means bad star, because every time you had a flood or an earthquake, you believed it was the gods who were angry, and so there was a bad star that caused the flood. Okay? Sushi is primarily made up of carbs. Well, yeah, that's because it's mostly rice. But when I go to eat sushi, I usually have a little sushi and mostly sashimi. You know? So I don't like to eat too much rice. You know? But, you know, it's funny because most Americans don't really know what good rice is, because we don't really care about rice here. We don't know what good rice is. We don't use rice. Only in South Carolina do they have any rice that they really grow that's their rice here. And they have some recipes for it that they're very serious about. But the rest of the country doesn't really care about rice. Yeah. Okay, next question. Or next word. Let me just check the comments here. What's the difference between wasabi and mustard? Wasabi comes from a very specific plant. Okay? Most wasabi is actually not real. It's fake. Especially in America. If you're in America, if you have wasabi, it's probably another plant called horseradish. It's another plant that they use that tastes very similar, but not the same as wasabi. So wasabi comes from a very specific plant that is not commonly grown. So it's usually imported from Japan, or there are a few people in the West who are making wasabi from real plants now. Mustard comes from a different plant, the mustard plant, which has mustard seeds. And the seeds are then ground and it becomes this yellow color, and that's mustard. Okay? You must eat a lot of meat if you live in the U.S. No, you don't. My sister's vegetarian. She doesn't eat any meat. No, if you come to America, you eat whatever you want to eat. If you come here, you don't have to change your diet at all. You can eat whatever you want to eat. So, for example, in my city, we have a great international market that has almost everything you could need. So if you move here from any country in the world, we have a grocery store that you can go to and find almost all the good stuff you need to make your food, if you want to. I mean, I'm serious. It's really shocking how much you can get. You can get almost anything here now. So, how many kinds of cheese are there? Bill, there are hundreds of kinds of cheese. Hundreds. Maybe even thousands. Definitely hundreds. Okay? I know that that international market that I go to has at least 300 kinds of cheese. Yeah. Yes, fermented foods are good for the production of probiotics. That's right. Is mold and mildew the same? Ooh, good question. Let me double check to make sure. I'm going to say no, but let me find out. I think it's not exactly the same. The main difference is mildew is a surface mold that appears powdery and light colored, while mold penetrates deeper. That's kind of what I was thinking, is mildew is just on the top. Okay, mold is kind of in deep. Okay. Yasir, I'm sorry, I'm not teaching about phrasal verbs today. I'm teaching about etymology. Okay, although we're talking about food. Do I like rice? I love rice. I love rice. But I just mean, Americans do occasionally eat rice, but we don't know, is this good rice or bad rice? Like, is there a difference between this rice and another rice? We don't know. I didn't know until I went to Asia, and now I've got, in the grocery store in Asia, they have 50 different kinds of rice, maybe 100 different kinds of rice, you know? So, and they've got rice from every different country, if you want it, you know? So we know about a couple of different kinds of rice, short grain and long grain, basmati and jasmine, sushi rice and that kind of thing. But most people, if you ask them what kind of rice is this, they'd be like, I don't know. It's rice. It's white rice. Naldi wants me to teach you idioms. Okay, we can do some idioms with etymology. How about that? So, give me an idiom, and then I'll tell you where it comes from. How's that? Carlos, yes, I am on YouTube now. Do American people eat Spanish jam? Not really. We have so many kinds of jam here, our own kind of jam. Esther, I was in Madrid last year, and every morning my friend Gunter and I had breakfast at this little coffee house right next to our place, and I had delicious bread with delicious jam and, ham and eggs, and it was so good every morning. It was so yummy. But I would say Spanish jam is not really that common, because why would it be? We have our own, If you're Spanish, then yeah, you probably love Spanish jam. Okay? What does touch wood mean? Knock on wood means I hope nothing bad happens, right? So if you say I've always passed my driving test, knock on wood, that means I hope I always will. Knock on wood, it means I hope it continues to be that way. Okay, I hope I continue to have good luck, means knock on wood. Not touch wood, but knock on wood. Okay? Bill, I'm sorry to tell you, but no. Mold is not a kind of fungus. Mold is a group of something else. They're not fungus. Fungus is a different thing. But again, the difference between mildew is just really on the top of something. Okay? But mold is there are a variety of molds. There are thousands of kinds of molds, and molds tend to permeate deeply within something. Okay, there's black mold and red mold and green mold and fuzzy mold and slimy mold, right? Yeah, mildew is usually pretty easy to clean up, but mold is not. Okay, what kind of meat do I prefer? I like all kinds of meat. Steak is great, chicken is great, pork is great, lamb is great, meat is great. Serrano ham, yes indeed, I miss it so much. Okay, guys, hi, my name is Teacher Mark. I'm teaching. I'm already teaching something. So please, focus on what I'm teaching, okay? It's kind of rude if you're not paying attention to what I'm talking about since it's my room. Okay? If you come to my room, you have to do what I'm doing. It doesn't work the other way around, okay? All right? Are there any cute molds? Well, that depends on what you think. All right, let's go to the next list of group of words here. Let's go to, how about, oh, let's talk about the word tea. What about the word tea? Where does tea come from? Kimmy, I will answer that question only because it's a fun question to answer. Is it normal for the U.S. to have at least one cockroach in every household? No. No. It's funny. In Asia, cockroaches are a lot more common because it's just the humidity and the environment and the nature is different, right? So when I moved over there, I was like, wow, you guys have cockroaches? That's not good. That's not normal. But it is normal over there because it's just part of even if you're very clean, they're everywhere. But here, no. If we see cockroaches, that means that you are living a dirty life and you need to clean up. Okay? Hilal, did you pay attention to what I said, Hilal? What are we talking about today? What's my topic today, Hilal? Is your question about my topic? Maybe that's why I didn't answer it. Okay? Okay, now let's move on and we're going to talk more about etymology. How about let's talk about let me choose another topic. Wait a minute. Where's my list? There we go. Oh, let's talk about the home. Let's talk about the words of the home and family. Like, what does husband mean? Husband. What is a husband? What is a husband? What does it mean? Do you know what the word husband really means? Anyone? Husband means house bond. House bond. It means the bonder of the house. He's the one who owns the house. That's the way it used to be. It used to be that men could only own property. Women were not allowed to own property. So, the owner of the house was the husband, the bonder of the house. Okay? So that's husband is house bond. Okay? And the word wife is actually kind of funny because the word wife means the woman you married. But a long time ago, the word wife just was the word that meant woman. It just meant a woman. That's all it was. Okay? For example, have you ever heard of a midwife before? What's a midwife? What's a midwife? You guys know what a midwife is? Husband is not a brother. No. Boudouin. No. That's right. Alexa says they help during pregnancy. That's right. So a midwife, in this case, the word wife, they're not talking about she's like the middle wife. She's like partly your wife. No, that was just the word that meant a woman at that time. And this was the woman who helped you middle of your birth. Middle of your wifery. Your duties as a wife, which was to give birth. That was the original meaning. Okay? So, we're not talking about what you think. We're not talking about what you feel. We are talking about the original meaning of the words. Okay? Yeah, they help mid-birth. That's what a midwife is. But the word wife at that time, this word is a very old term. So originally the word wife just meant a woman. That's all. Now it's different. Okay? But I'm just telling you the original meaning. Okay? How about the word village? What about the word village? What is a village? What is a village? V-I-L-L-A-G-E, village. Anyone? No, it's not full of greenery. No. What is a village? A small town. Yeah, a small town. That's a village. But what about this word? What is that word? Villain. What's a villain? A bad guy. That's right. Don't you think it's a little bit weird that the word village and villain kind of look the same? They kind of sound the same? Do you know why? Anyone? Because the rich people, if someone stole something, if someone did something bad, who did they blame? If someone did something bad, they always thought it must be one of the villagers. It must be one of the villagers. They are the villain. So the word villain and villager are related. It's kind of funny. Bye, Esther. Have a good one. And Kimmy, I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to say I can't continue talking about cockroaches anymore, okay? I have to focus on my topic today, okay? So let's come back to my topic. All right, Kimmy? You can talk about your topic another time, all right? Yes, the word villain is related to the word village because that's who they blamed. They always blamed the poor people. and the poor people live in the village, so it must be one of them. Okay, that's what they think. All right? I always thought that was kind of funny. What about the word toilet? Toilet. What does toilet mean? This is one that's also funny. Toilet. Anyone? Toilet? So, the word toilet now sometimes has two meanings. One is restroom, right? I need to go to the toilet. Now, many people will say you shouldn't use the word toilet. It doesn't sound as good. It sounds a little bit too rough. But it's funny if you learn about what the original word was. The word toilet now can mean the restroom, or it can mean the actual thing that you flush. That is the toilet. Matong, nigga matong is a toilet. Okay? But a long time ago, the word toilet was a completely different meaning. What does this word mean? What is the word toil? To toil. What is toiling? If I'm toiling with something, what am I doing? Anyone? To toil. It's a verb. To toil means to do something that's very difficult and takes time. Toiling is anything that takes a lot of time and effort to do is to toil. Okay? Why did they call it that? Because have you ever seen what people looked like in the 1900s, or let's call it like around the year 1900, or let's say 1800. Around the year 1800, what did the women look like when they went out? Hard work is to toil, that's right. That's right. So, when the women went out, how long did it take a woman to get ready to go out? Have you ever seen the pictures? Let's take a look. Okay, take a look at this picture. How long do you think it would take to put on these clothes and this hair? Anyone? It takes a long time. Yeah, probably 2 hours. It takes a long time. They needed help. Sometimes the girls would help each other. That's why women went to the bathroom together. Why do women go to the bathroom together? Because traditionally, a long time ago, you needed more than one woman to help each other with their hair and their hats and their dress and to make sure everything looked right. So women would go to the bathroom together to say, hey, I'll help you, you help me. And it was a lot of work. So it's toiling. So that's why they called that room the toilet. Because that's where you went to toil on your face and your makeup and your hair and your dress. That's where the word toilet comes from. To toil. Okay? Toilette. To toil comes from the, let's see, the Latin word. It comes from French toilet to the Latin word tudicare. Tudiculare, which means to crush with a small hammer. So the original word toil comes from making olive oil. How do you make olive oil? How do you make olive oil? Anyone? Anybody from the Middle East? Is it easy to make olive oil? Yeah, you have to crush them. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to make olive oil. You have to crush them. And a long time ago, they would crush them with a hammer. With a hammer. Okay? It's a lot of work. So, 3,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, whatever, the Romans, when they were talking about toiling, they were talking about making, olive oil or breaking olives with a hammer. It was a lot of work. Yeah. It's the same now for actresses and models. Angela, I would say yeah, but I still think it was way worse a long time ago. If you've ever looked at, you're from Italy, right? So you've seen, the dresses, the clothing that women wore a long time ago was incredibly elaborate. They had this piece, and then on top of that, they had another piece, and on top of that, they had another piece, and on top of that, they got this, and then they got this thing, and then they got these things, and there were so many pieces to clothing for women back then. It was ridiculous. Yeah, EVOO, that's what we call it, EVOO. Angela, I use it all the time. I love extra virgin olive oil. All right, let's keep talking about some more words, right? Let me think. What about the word baguette? What is a baguette? Anyone? This might interest you, Angela. This has a French and Italian history. Baguette is bread. Yeah. B-A-G-U-E-T-T-E. Or is it two G's? I can't remember. Nope, one G. B-A-G-U-T-T-E. It's a French word. That's right. Yeah, any word that ends with E-T-T-E is a French word. It means, E-T-T-E means something smaller, diminutive, or feminine. And so, the original meaning of the word baguette, though, let me find it here. Let me remind myself. So it's funny because this word actually comes from an Italian word, bacchetta. Bacchetta. Do you know what that is, Angela? What is a bacchetta? It comes from the Latin word baccio, meaning a rod, a wand. That's right. Yeah, and this was a word that came from architecture, from buildings, because the piece that you would put over a doorway, the piece of wood that you put over a doorway, that was called a Baguette. And it's long, and it's thin, and it's about this long. That's why they call it baguette. Okay, so the French word comes from the Italian word baguette, which was a piece of wood that went over a doorway, which was about the same size as what we see the baguette is now. Yeah. Do I have a group for learning? No, I do not. My group is here. If you come watch my live streams, this is my group. I have 84,000 followers. They come to watch me here. Okay, this is what I do. This is as much as I do. I don't do anything more. I'm here a lot, okay? Okay, let's talk about the word potato and tomato. Where do potato and tomato come from? Let's talk about tomato first. Where does tomato come from? The word tomato. Anyone? Do you know where tomatoes originally come from? What country? What country are tomatoes from first? Not from Italy. No. No. If you went to Italy 1,000 years ago, there were no tomatoes. If you went to Italy 500 years ago, there were no tomatoes. Not Spain. Nope, not Spain either. If you went to Spain 500 years ago, there were no tomatoes. Wait a minute, let me check something. Well, I would call it 600 years ago. It's close. It's very close. So 500 years ago is 1525. Columbus came to the to the Americas in 1492. So somewhere between 1492 and we'll call it 1600. 1492 to 1600. That is when something called the Columbian Exchange happened. The Columbian Exchange. And what is the Columbian Exchange? It means Columbus, when he came to the Americas, they brought a lot of vegetables and animals that we didn't have in America. There were no cows here. There were no pigs here. There were no horses here, if I remember right, too. They brought all those here, right? There were many foods that came from Europe that were brought here, that did not exist here before Columbus. And when Columbus went back to Europe, he brought a lot of foods from the New World to Europe. And then they spread everywhere. So the tomato is one of the most famous and popular that happened. Tomatoes come from Mexico. The word tomato comes from an old, the language that was in, well, there were many languages in Mexico a long time ago, but one of the languages in Mexico before Spanish was Nahuatl. Nahuatl was the local regional language of the people there, okay? One of them, one of many. And Nahuatl is the language that gave us the word tomato, which comes from their word was tomatl. Tomatl, and in their language, tomatl means bursting fruit. Bursting fruit. Because tomatoes, when you grow them, when they get big and fat, they break apart. They split. So the word tomato comes from the Nahuatl word that means bursting fruit. But then tomatoes came to Europe and they didn't call them tomatoes. They didn't know the original word. No. When they came to Europe, they called them Well, the rich people called them poison apples, and the poor people called them golden apples. Tomatoes were originally called golden apples, which is why the Italian word pomodoro means golden apple. That's what pomodoro means. So that's what the rich people, the poor people would call them golden apples, but the rich people called them poison apples. Do you know why? I've told this story a few times, so you've probably heard me tell it before. But why did the rich people think that tomatoes were poison? Rich people didn't eat them. They thought, these are poison, we can't eat them. But the poor people ate them. So why did the rich people believe that tomatoes were poison? No, but that's a good guess, Victoria. No, this is it's a very interesting Sherlock Holmes kind of a detective story. Rich people and poor people both tried to eat tomatoes, but there was one very big difference between the way rich people ate tomatoes and the way poor people ate tomatoes. And that difference is their plates. The plates that they used to eat on. Poor people used wooden plates, usually. They had wooden plates, okay? And tomatoes, if you eat tomatoes on a wooden plate, it's totally fine. It's no problem. No problem at all, okay? But the rich people, many of those people, the plates that they ate on were made of something called pewter. Pewter. P-E-W-T-E-R. Pewter is a kind of metal. It's a soft metal that's very easy to manipulate. So they used it a lot. A long time ago, they used pewter to make everything because it was easy to mold. Okay, you could shape it into many things. So you'd make pewter plates and pewter spoons and forks, and they had a lot of pewter things. But that was only for the rich people. The poor people used wood, cheap things, cheap metal. Okay? Pewter is a metal that contains lead. Pewter is a metal that contains lead. And tomatoes are highly, highly acidic. They have a lot of acid in tomatoes. So when the rich people ate tomatoes on the pewter plates, the tomato, the acid from the tomatoes would pull the lead chemicals, the lead element out of the pewter, and they would eat it, and then they would get sick. So rich people called them poison apples, poor people called them golden apples. And that's why the Italian word for tomato is still pomodoro, which means golden apple. And the first kinds of the first kinds of tomatoes were not red. The first kinds of tomatoes were more like a yellow-orange color. The first tomatoes they brought to Europe were more like a yellow-orange color, so that's why they called them golden apples. Okay? And what about eggplants? Eggplants. Oh no, I'm sorry, we talked about potatoes. We didn't talk about that. Potatoes also come from the New World, right? They come from the Americas. Potatoes come a little bit further south. Potatoes come from Peru and the Andes Mountains. They were the most popular crop in South America in the mountains, the Peruvian mountains. They had potatoes a lot there. And so they brought potatoes to the New World also. Now here's another funny story. Again, when they brought potatoes to the New World, what happens when you see new food? What do you usually think? If you see something new that you've never seen before, Do you always want to try it, or sometimes are you a little suspicious? If you see a new food, sometimes when you see a new food, you're like, I don't know about that, right? I don't know about that, right? So there's a story in France. Let me make sure I get the names right. Hold on. Oh, it's storming. Oh yeah, Parmentier. So when they brought potatoes to America, just like the tomatoes, many people saw them and they thought, I don't know what that is. I don't think I want to eat it because it's new, it's different. So I don't know about that yet, right? Poor people were more likely to try it because they're poor. When you're poor, you try anything, right? Because you have to, right? But rich people, or if you were not poor, then you might say, I don't know about that. Potato and tomato, those are weird. Those are new. I don't think I like that, right? So there was a guy in France. His name was Antoine Augustin Parmentier. And he had a really great idea. He planted potatoes in his field. He had a big house, a big chateau. And he had a big field outside his chateau, and he planted potatoes there. And he told everybody in town about his potatoes that he planted. And then he hired guards. He paid guards to guard the field at night so that everybody believed the potatoes must be very valuable because he's guarding them. And then he took the guards away, and the people came and stole the potatoes and started eating them and trying them. It was a trick. He tricked them into liking potatoes by making them believe they were valuable by guarding them. Isn't that a great story? I love that story. Parmentier. And there's still a famous recipe for potatoes. It's Parmentier potatoes. Yeah. So, potatoes, tomatoes, those come from the New World. Eggplant also comes from the New World. In Europe, the word for eggplant is usually aubergine. It's the French word, right? Let me check something here. Hold on. Yeah, so let's see. Aubergine comes from the Catalan word albigenera, which comes from the Arabic word albadinjan, which comes from the Persian word badingan. So it might even go back to Sanskrit, but it definitely goes back to Persian, right? So there are two words for eggplant. One is aubergine, and the other one is eggplant. Eggplant. So why do we call it an eggplant? It doesn't look like eggs. That's right. That's right. Angela says it's a horrible name. That doesn't look like it, right? Okay, next is white eggplant. Look at this. This is white eggplant. Wow, look at that. The first eggplant looked like this. That's what the first eggplants looked like. That's why they called them eggplants. That makes sense now, right? That makes sense now. One moment, I have to deal with something. Ah, come on. Okay, yeah. Badamjan. Okay, yeah, right. That's where aubergine comes from, is from the original Persian word. Yeah. Okay? That's right. Yeah. So Osama, again, languages are like this, right? That's why if you go to the Middle East, food and language and music, come on, all of those things are mixed among the Middle Eastern countries, right? I know you all argue about who made the first baba ganoush and who made the first hummus and who made the first dolma, but you all have them, and it's been a long time. It's been thousands of years that you've been making dolma and thousands of years that you've been making hummus. I don't think it really matters anymore who did it first, because at that time there were no countries anyway. It's kind of, at the time there were no borders the way we know them now. So it's silly. You created a food before the borders, but now you talk about the borders like they matter for the food. They don't. It's delicious. It's delicious. They're from the Middle East. Okay? Let me tell you where dolma is from. Dolma is from Earth. Have you ever heard of Earth? That's where dolma is from. Baba ganoush is from Earth. So, for example, the word merhaba is a Turkish word, but it's also an Arabic word, right? And sometimes you say assalamu alaikum, and sometimes you say salam, right? Those are the ways languages and food and music all come together. Okay? Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Osama, yeah, to me, arguing over who made it first is silly. Eat it, enjoy it, and shut up. Just like jazz music. Some people, when they listen to jazz music, they talk about jazz music. What does it mean, and why did they play it like this, and what is this for, and why they're analyzing it. They're talking about it. But guess what? It's not supposed to be talked about. It's supposed to be listened to. You're supposed to listen to it and enjoy it. Just feel something. Same thing for food. You're not supposed to analyze it. You're supposed to eat it. You know? Yeah. For eggplant, you say nasu. No, Bill, don't you? 这是茄子。中文 eggplant 就是茄子。就是因为如果你是中国人，你要做拍照，你可以说什么？你不说 cheese， 你们说茄子。That's eggplant， 对不对 ？Right? Okay, let's keep going. Any more? Let me think of some more. Oh, I lost it. Oh no. No, I lost my notes. Damn it. Oops. Okay. Let me think of some other foods. What about the word ketchup? Ketchup. Where does ketchup come from? This one will surprise you. The word ketchup. Where does the word ketchup come from? Anyone? 会啊，我会，可是我说奇怪的中文。这是自己学的，所以有一点奇怪。 有一点奇怪。Okay, ketchup. The word ketchup, it comes from a Chinese word. It comes from an old Cantonese word. Indo-Chinese. It's an old dialect of Chinese. Catsup. Catsup. There were many European sailors who would come through Southeast Asia on boats, right, in the 1800s. Many Southeast Asian boats came boats came from Europe into Southeast Asia. God, I can't speak today. And when the sailors would come to Southeast Asia, they always heard the word catsup, catsup, which at the time, it just meant a sauce, a fish sauce. It was a kind of fish sauce that was very common, right? So the sailors thought that the word catsup just meant sauce. They just believed that it means sauce, like jiang. So when they went back to Europe, England in particular, in England, the Heinz family was one of the most famous and first families to make what we now call ketchup. So the name ketchup comes from Chinese, but the taste, the flavor is nothing about that. The flavor was completely made in England. It was their own recipe. Okay, but the name, they used the name that they heard from Chinese, catsup, which meant sauce. So that's where ketchup comes from. It's Chinese. Have I bored you yet? Let's see, what else is there? Give me a food. Give me a food and I'll tell you where it comes from. Give me a word, any word, and I'll tell you where it comes from and what it originally means. Oh yeah, we talked about tea. Tea is a great one because now we pronounce it tea and we spell it T-E-A. But originally the word tea was, before it was pronounced T, it was pronounced Tay, and it was spelled T-A-Y or T-A-E. And before it was pronounced Tay, it was Che. And before it was Che, it was Chai. And before it was Chai, it was Cha. So the word tea in English comes from Chinese. Because the word cha in Chinese is tea. And the word cha in India, that word became chai. So in India, the word for tea is chai. And then the word, because of the British took over India, and then they took the word chai and made it che, and then they made it tay, and then they made it tea. Yeah, okay, so if you say cha, then it comes from the Chinese word. Why do you say cha? Because I want you to think about the trade routes. What trade routes did you use to get tea? Whichever trade route you used, that's where the word you used comes from. But for the British, the word tea comes from that line. Cha, chai, chai, che, che, te, te, tea. Which one is older, American English or British English? British English. Very simply, because the origins of English began before the origins of America. So of course, English was British English before it had American English. Yeah, right. Yeah. Again, it's all about the where they come from. Yeah. How about Canadian Australian English? Well, again, Canadian English is the same as American English. They were formed around the same time. Australian English, Australia was a continent that already had native people on it, just like America did, right? Just like the U.S. had native people on it, and then we came from Europe, right? So Australia was similar, that they already had native people in Australia, but England used Australia. The first people that came from England to Australia were mostly prisoners. They sent the bad people from England to Australia. So Australian English is earlier. Well, let me check the dates on that. Hold on. (1788) was the first penal colony. So I would say then Australian English comes after American English. Yeah, because America was founded slightly before that. Okay? White, you should choose whichever one you want. It doesn't matter. Just pick one. It does not matter which one you choose. If you want to choose Australian, fine. If you want to choose the British accent, fine. If you want to choose the Canadian accent, fine. Doesn't matter. Just pick one. Okay? Can you pick all of them? You can, but no. I don't think it's a good idea. No. Are you trying to learn English or are you trying to impress people? Choose. Are you trying to impress people or are you trying to learn English? Pick one. Don't do both. If you want to if you want to understand all English, first you have to understand some English. Why not start with one and then build from there? That's the way to do it. Okay? Choose one. I don't care which one. Learn that one well. And once you know that one well, then you'll feel like you can do the others easily. Okay? But you have to learn one well. All right? Okay, guys, again, what is today's topic? What is today's topic? What is today's topic? What is today's topic? Etymology, 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 etymology. Your questions must be about etymology. Okay? If your question is not about etymology, I'm not going to answer it. Okay? I'm sorry, but that's the way it works here. All right? Now let's go back to talking about well, we just talked about tea, right? Let me think. Are there any other ones that I want to talk about? Food words that are fun to talk about? Let me think. What about the word barbecue? What about the word barbecue? What is etymology? 这是明史的历史，明史的历史。Okay? History of words. Barbecue. Barbecue is an interesting word. Barbecue comes from Cuba. The word barbecue comes from Cuba. Now, at the time, it was not called Cuba. Let me pull up my notes. So it comes from Haiti and from the West Indians and from, it was called Hispaniola at the time. Hispaniola was what it was called, okay? So Columbus actually didn't really go to America. Columbus went to Hispaniola and Haiti and all those places there in that area, okay? That's where he really was. And, the word barbacoa was a Spanish word, but that one comes from an old Haitian word. In Haiti, now in Haiti they speak Creole and French, right? French Creole. But before the French, they had another language there, Arawakan. And in the Arawakan Haitian language, the word barbacoa, it means a bunch of sticks, a bunch of pieces of wood that you put like boom, 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 boom. You make a grill, right? You make a pattern like this. And that was called a barbacoa, okay? Like this. Let me see. Let's see. Let me find a good picture. No, that's not what I want. Yeah, like this. Like this. Where's a good picture? Come on. Look at this. Nope, not that. This. Look at this. What is that? Okay? Or this. What is that? This is a barbacoa. That's the word from Haiti, from Hispaniola and from Haiti. This was called a barbacoa. And this was a way that the native people cooked meat. They cooked like this. So that's where the word barbecue comes from. Barbecue comes from the Haitian, Hispaniola people, the people who were there when Columbus came. Okay, he saw them cooking like this, and that's where they used the word barbecue. Okay, so in Spanish they call it barbacoa still. Okay, so there's another one, barbecue. That's a fun word. Let's see, what else is a good one? What about salt? Salt is a funny word because many English words come from salt. Like the word salary. What is a salary? What is a salary? Anyone? Salary. Salary means your paycheck. That's right. It's the money you get paid. So the word salary is related to the word salt. And the reason why is because a long time ago, let's say 1,000 years ago, salt was a very, very, very valuable resource. Salt was really important. Why? Why was salt so important a long time ago? Tell me why salt was so important. Anyone? Why was salt so important a long time ago? Thank you, Thomas. But why was it like gold? Why? Why is it important? To keep food dry. That's right. Salt was a way to preserve food. A long time ago, the difference between rich people and poor people was food. If you had food, you are rich. If you don't have food, you are not rich. So how can you have food? Because they don't have any way to store it. There's no refrigeration. They don't have a refrigerator. So how did they keep the food? Salt. Salt. You could keep a lot of food for a long time if you have salt. Okay? It was suitable for preserving and for enhancing flavor, and it didn't spoil over time. That's right. So guess what? The Romans, the Roman Empire, how did they pay their soldiers? Did they pay their soldiers with money? No. They paid their soldiers with salt. That's where we get the word salary. The word salary is because the Roman soldiers were paid with salt. Okay? That's another good one. Let me think of another food word with a cool story. Wait a minute. When you think of Chinese Sichuan food, and you think of Thai food. If you think of Thai food or you think of Chinese Sichuan, what is the first ingredient that you think of? If you think of Thai food or you think of Chinese Sichuan, what's the first ingredient that you think of? Anybody? I'll tell you about the omelet in a minute. Omelet's good. Tofu, I can tell you about that too. Spicy, right? Spicy. So, 就是那个红辣椒，对不对？ Right? 红辣椒这是中国的吗？他们是在哪里？ Where do they come from? The chili pepper, right. Where do they come from? Are they Chinese? When you think of Sichuan food, you think of those chili peppers, right? You think of those little red chili peppers, right? The dried ones. They're so important to Chinese food, right? Well, guess what? Those come from America. The Americas. They come from Mexico, again. So, tomatoes. When you think about Italian food, you think about tomatoes. But tomatoes don't come from Italy. Tomatoes come from America. When you think of Ireland, you think of potatoes. But potatoes don't come from Ireland. Potatoes come from Peru, South America. When you think of Thai food and you think of Chinese Sichuan spicy food, you think of, oh, that must be Chinese. No, those peppers also came from America. You didn't know that our cultures were mixed like this, but they are. Yeah. It's called the Columbian Exchange. Look it up. The Columbian Exchange. Many, many foods and items were brought from from Europe to the New World, and from the New World back to Europe. Okay? Salt is one of the most important ingredients in Russian cuisine because it maintains energy in cold weather. Yeah, so again, salt becomes more important if you live in a place where it's warm and you can grow things all the time and it's always warm all year. Salt is not as important for you. But if you live someplace that has a winter, then you need salt because you have to preserve the food over the winter. You know, so everybody had to preserve food, but depending on where you live, you might need it more or less. In Russia, they also didn't need salt sometimes because why? It was cold. It's cold there. So just like in Europe and in America a long time ago, they used to use natural outdoor places to store food. Like caves, right? Or they would dig a hole in the ground and make a little cavern in the ground to store the food underground because it's cold and cool and dry and it keeps it for a long time. So I don't know how we started talking mostly about food, but yeah. We were talking about language. We were talking about the words themselves, you know, but these are all mixed. You know, the history of food is an interesting one if you look at it. It's very interesting. Yeah. What about do we have anybody from Mexico here? Anybody from Mexico? Do we have any Mexicans in the audience? Do you guys know what well, you guys know what tacos are, right? What is a taco? What is a taco? Hello? Anyone? What's a taco? Yeah, it's a food. It's a Mexican food, right? It's a Mexican food. So I'm going to show you a picture, and I want you to tell me what country this is from. I'm going to show you a picture, okay? Look at this picture. Tell me what country it is. What country is that? Gallon says Turkey, Iraq, Turkey, Turkey. Anybody else? Turkish, Arabic, shawarma. So this is not shawarma and it's not Turkish. This is Mexican al pastor tacos. How is that possible? How is that possible? Why does this look like shawarma? Why? I'll tell you why. Because a long time ago, there was a group of people from Lebanon, the country of Lebanon, who moved from Lebanon to Mexico. And when they came to Mexico, they brought this cooking technique. Okay? Now, in Mexico, shawarma is usually made with what? What is it usually made with? It's usually made with lamb, right? But they don't have a lot of lamb in Mexico. They didn't have lamb. So they used either chicken or pork. And they did the same thing. They put the chicken, they sliced the chicken, they sliced the pork, they put it on there, they stack it up, and then they cook it, and they cut it, and then they put it in a taco with pineapple. That is called al pastor tacos. And it's from Mexico, but it's from the Middle East. It's a wonderful mix. It's a wonderful mix. It's one of my favorite kind of tacos. Al pastor tacos are delicious. Yeah. Yeah, you know, a lot of foods are like that. You just don't know they're mixed. You just didn't know that they are mixed. That's all. But if you know where the words come from, you can learn a lot. What about the word taxi? The word taxi comes from taxi cab, which was short for. Let me remember the right word. Hold on, I'm searching my mind. It was short for taximeter. Taximeter, that's what it was. So the original word taxi was actually taximeter. And the word taxi means tax. It's a tax. You have to pay. And meter means to measure. Like you're measuring how far you have to pay. So the word taxi is short for taximeter. Fajitas are also delicious. Yes, they are. Yeah, all Mexican food is amazing. You should try it. Mexican food is really delicious. Yeah. So yeah, taximeter comes from that word. The word bus, a bus, B-U-S, comes from the word omnibus. Omnibus. That was the original word, omnibus. Omnibus, again, omni means everywhere. Omni means everywhere, and bus in this case means to move or take people. So an omnibus was a thing that took people everywhere. That's what a bus is. Omelet. Yes, the word omelet. Thank you for reminding me. So omelet, it comes from the French word alamette, which that came from another word, an old word, alamele, which means the blade of a knife or a sword. It's kind of weird. The word omelet actually means like a knife or a sword. Okay? But why? Why does it mean that? It's because when they used to make eggs, the first way that they made eggs, when you made them, they came out very flat. So omelets, they didn't roll them. The first omelets were just flat, like a blade. They were flat like a blade. So the word omelet comes from the word blade because that's what they're flat like a blade. Okay? Kebabs, that's a Turkish Arabic word. Let's see. It comes from shish kebab, which is Turkish. Sis kebab, which sis means skewer and kebab means roasted meat. So kebab comes from shish kebab. And if you didn't know, shish kebab is pretty popular here in America. We do it our own way, right? But I've been making shish kebab since I was a kid. We would make it on the grill. But it's not the way you do it. It's our own little way of doing it. But it's the same idea. You take meat and vegetables and you put them on one big skewer and you roast it, you know. Now when I do them all separately, but yeah, whatever. Anyway. Okay. Barbecue, I told you, the word barbecue comes from an old word, barbacoa, which means a bunch of sticks a bunch of wood that you put together so you can put your meat on top of the wood over the fire. That's what a barbecue was. The barbacoa, it means something to put the meat on over the fire. Yeah. Shashlik, yeah, that's right. Fried pieces of meat on a stick that the world eats and enjoys. Right, yeah. So again, shish, the word shish, shash, comes from shish, which means skewer. That's a Turkish word. Festival. The word festival, I remember this one let me just check. Festival comes from an old, Latin festivalis, which means, the original meaning of festival is just a holiday, but the word festival is related to the word feast. What is a feast? What is a feast? What is a feast? A big meal, right. So a festival was a holiday. And what do you usually do on a holiday? You have a big meal. So the word festival and the word feast are related. Yeah. What about Sputnik? Sputnik was the first Russian satellite, right? And I also know about Laika. Laika was the Russian dog that went to space. I had a band, and the name of the band was Laika. We were named after the Russian dog that went to space. Let's see, what else? Do I know about biryani? Yes, I know about biryani. Yes. What about Mino? What is Mino? What are you asking? I don't know what you're asking. Oh, biryani. Oh, right. Again, biryani. Guys, don't be silly about history. Some things are so old that you don't know. Some things are so old that you don't know. It was a Finnish dog, but it was the one that the Russians sent to space, right? That was my understanding of the story. Okay, what else? Any other words? Menu. The word menu, if you're asking about menu, that's again a French word. It comes from Latin, minutus. The word menu comes from the word small. So that's what's so funny, because the word menu is supposed to be small. So if you go to a restaurant and it has a big menu, you should tell them, hey, this isn't right. Menu means small. Okay? So menus shouldn't be big. They should be small. Let's see, what else? Many Americans are beginning to appreciate the taste of pilaf. Again, Larry, Americans are from everywhere. So we've been eating pilaf for a long time. If you're from Eastern Europe, my family is from Slovakia. That's close enough that they have pilaf, right? Plov, pilaf. There's many names for it that are close to the same thing. I have some in my refrigerator right now. I made some a few months ago, or 2 months ago, and it's in my refrigerator in the freezer. Sure. What about God? You mean the word God? Monday to Sunday. Sure. I love this one. So all of the days of the week and the months all have a story. So, for example, Sunday is the day of the sun. Monday is the day of the moon. Tuesday, T-I-E-W, was the name of a German god a long time ago. That was the name that the Germans used for the Roman god Mars. So it was the Roman god Mars, but the German word Tew. So Tuesday is the day of Tew. Okay? Wednesday and Thursday and Friday, those come from Viking history, Norse history, Northern European people history. Wednesday comes from the father god Odin in Norse history. Odin, a long time ago, Odin was pronounced and spelled Woden. Woden, W-O-D-E-N. So Wednesday is Woden's day. Thursday is Thor. Thor, the guy from the movies with the big hammer. That's Thor. Thursday is named after him. That's Thursday. It's Thor's day, the day of Thor. Friday is named after the goddess Freya. Freya was another Viking goddess. And so Friday is named after Freya. And Saturday comes from Saturn, the planet Saturn, which was a god. Again, these were considered like gods. Okay, so every one of the days is named after a god. The god of the sun, the god of the moon, the god of Mars, the god of Odin, the god of Thor, the god of Freya, the god of Saturn. Okay? And then, all of the months, too. All of the months. So, before I do that, let me just check this first. God comes from German and Norse. German is Gott and Norse is Gor, or Gut, which the original meanings of God means that which is invoked. Means like you're calling on them, right? So the original meaning of the word God actually means something that you call on, like a supreme being that you're calling. That's the meaning. Okay? Now, why did we choose 24 hours per day? That's a long story, but let me first answer about the months. Okay, and then I'll try to answer that if I can. I don't know if I can, but I'll try. So first, the months. January. January is named after the Roman god Janus. Janus was the Roman god of the future and the past. So the Roman god Janus had two faces, and one face looked into the future and one face looked into the past. Okay? So that's why January is the first month. Okay? February is named for the Roman holiday of Februa. Februa was a festival. It was a day of it was to celebrate the end of winter. And so in February they would have a big festival with a lot of fires. A lot of fires. Okay? And they would dance around the fire. And when you danced around the fire, you would get very hot and sweaty. So the word February is related to the word febrile, which means to have a fever. So the word fever is related to February because of the Roman holiday Februa. March is named after Mars. April is not, we're not entirely sure about April, but the story that I usually tell that most people believe is that April comes from the Latin word, I believe it's aprile, which means to bloom or to open. Because what happens in April? April's spring, so that's when things bloom, right? So then we have May. May is named after the god Maya. June is named after Juno, okay? And then it gets very interesting, okay? Because the Roman calendar only had 10 months. The original Roman calendar did not have 12 months. It had 10. And that the extra time was just winter. That was just winter, okay? The extra time, these extra 2 months was just winter. So, when you look at the months, September, October, November, December, when you see the letters OCT, what does OCT mean? Oct. What does OCT mean? Octopus. What is an octopus? Right, but if an octopus has 8 arms, then why is October the 10th month? That doesn't make sense. Why is October the 10th month? Because it wasn't originally. Originally, the Roman calendar only had 10 months. It was January, February, March, April, May, June, and then September, October, November, December. And that's why sept means 7, oct means 8, nov means 9, and dec means 10. Okay? So then where did we get July and August? Where did those come from? July and August were created by Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar wanted 1 month named after himself. So July is named for Julius Caesar. And his father was Augustus Caesar, who was another great leader, so they named August after him. So they changed the calendar, and that is why October is the 10th month. So yeah. January, February, March, April, May, June. Then you have July, named after Julius Caesar. August, named after Augustus Caesar. And then you have September, October, November, and December. And now we have 12 months. Yeah, at least Nero wasn't part of it. That's right. Okay? The word train comes from the word that means to pull something. That's why it's called a train, because it pulls, right? It pulls something. And when a woman gets married, sometimes they have a dress with a very long part in the back of the dress, right? The dress is so long. That part of the dress is called the train, because you pull it. You pull it. Okay? Why did Romulus not have his own? Romulus and Remus were not real people. They were myths, right? Romulus and Remus were the mythological story of the 2 boys who were raised by wolves outside of the city of Rome. Yeah. Okay? Okay, let me think. Any other words you want to ask me about? The word pillow. Valerie, pillow comes from the Old English word pile, which just meant a cushion, any kind of cushion. That comes from the Latin word pulvinus, pulvinus, which means a small cushion or pillow. So the original word pillow actually kind of just means anything that you stuff so that you could make it softer, right? But that comes from the Latin word, which just means a small cushion. Okay? Okay, what else? Let's see. Empowerment. Well, empowerment is 3 parts. To empower. So the EM in empower is actually from EN, which means to give, right? So in, meaning in, like you have it in you. Now they've given it in you. It's the power you have in you to empower, right? They've given it to you in you. So it's you have been empowered. Okay? Nuclear, that comes from nucleus, which is the Latin word that means a little nut. The word nucleus in Latin, the original meaning, it means a little nut. That's what that means. How about circle? Circle is Greek, if I remember right. Let me check. Circle comes from... No, it's Latin. It's Latin also. I thought it was Greek, but no, it's circulus, which means circular figure, small ring, a hoop. Yeah, circulus, which comes from the word circus. Circus means a ring. Emperor or empire. So emperor is a ruler, right? Empire is what they rule. Emperor is related to the word empire, so empire comes first. The word emperor has the OR on the end of it, and many, many English words that have OR or ER on the end of them, it means a person who does that thing, like teacher, doctor, lawyer, right? Those are all ER or OR ending words. They mean a person who does that thing, right? So an emperor is someone who has an empire, okay? And the word empire comes from the Latin word imperium, which means to control or command. Okay, so the word empire comes from the Latin word imperium, that means to control or command. Okay, next word. Well, that's interesting, Valery. Yeah, so the Russian word for pillow has a different etymology than the English word. Yeah. Cotton comes from Persian, I believe, if I remember right. The word cotton comes from Arabic and Persian. Yeah, Arabic was kutun, and that came from... Oh, no, maybe it says it's Arabic with possible Egyptian origin before Arabic. And yeah, that's the original word. It just means that plant. Yeah. Why do English love to create so many kinds of vocabs? It's not a matter of creating them. That's not how that exactly works. We're not just saying, oh, we need to make a new word. Words, they're born almost naturally through interaction. Language is a real live thing that grows and changes, just like people. Okay? So the difference between daydream and reverie is there is a difference. There's a big difference. For one, daydream is a much more common casual word. Reverie is a very, very uncommon and much more academic level word. That's one big difference. But if I tell somebody I was daydreaming, that's not the same as saying I was feeling in reverie. No, those are not the same at all. Okay? So the reason why we have so many words is because there are so many colors. There are so many shades to the words. Okay? There are many, many different words. This word is good here, but this word is good here. Okay? Okay, now, today, guys, I know like Sarah said, oh, it's so hard for me. It is. This is hard. This is not for beginners, okay? Etymology is for intermediate to advanced learners. But it's a lot of fun if you get into it. If you get into it, languages are really interesting to study the history of them. Yeah. Yeah, you definitely would not say reverie randomly on conversation. And as a matter of fact, reverie in America, reverie has another meaning altogether. It's even a song. It's a song that they play. Let me make sure I want to make, maybe that's just different spelling. But let me double check. Pleasantly in one thoughts, daydreaming. Yeah, no, it is an instrumental piece. Right. So there's a song called Reverie that we play. Yeah. So words are interesting. You know? They have nuance. Nuance. It means they're very subtly different, but important differences. Important differences. Okay? Conversation. Conversation. What does conversation mean? Conversation. The word con means together. Con means together. And versation comes from the word versare, which means to turn. Versare means to turn. So the word conversation means to turn with somebody and have a conversation. Like you turn towards them to talk with them. That's what converse means. To turn towards someone so that you talk with them. Okay? Con. Many English words begin with the letters con or com, and they mean with or together. Okay? So communication, that means with, together. Okay? Connection means with or together. All of those C-O-N and C-O-M words, they mean something about with or together. Why are the words to saw and to see spelled and pronounced the same in English in the past tense? They're not, Alexander. In the past tense, it's saw. I saw it yesterday. I see it today. They are never pronounced the same. I'm not sure why you think they are. They're not. Oh, you're talking about the tool. You want to know why the tool is pronounced the same way. So the word saw, the tool, that one, to cut wood, that is from a different word. It comes from Old English, sago, which means knife. Sag means knife. So it comes from Danish, Dutch, Old High German, saga, meaning to saw. So that one is a coincidence. It's a coincidence that the word saw, S-A-W, sounds and is spelled just like the past tense of see. Okay, it's totally a coincidence. They're not related. Okay? So there are two parts in this word. Yeah, so that's part of the advantage that I have because I know etymology. When I see a word, I can see all the little words in it. Right? So I know all the words inside. What about complementing? So let's look at complement. Complement. Let's see. So compliment, to give an active expression of civility or to tell somebody something nice, right? That's from the word complement. So compliment with an I is related to the word complement with an E, which means to complete something, right? So a compliment is like, let me think of a good way to explain it. So it's like an obligation of politeness. You're required to be polite. So when you say a compliment, you are fulfilling your duty of politeness to complete your duty. To complete your duties. So it's about completing the need to give a compliment. That's what it's about. Okay? Well, that's interesting, Valerie. I don't know about that. Hello, Yura. Yeah, it's like I said, the word compliment with an I is related to the word complement with an E, right? So to complement means to complete something, to add something that completes it. So the idea is when you compliment someone with an I, you're giving them, you're saying something nice about them, and that is your duty to be polite. So you're completing your duty of politeness. That's where the word compliment, that's why compliment is related to complement, to complete. You're completing your duty of politeness. Okay? What's the story behind the name Mark? There is no story. It's a name from the Bible. That's the story. Mark, John, Paul, all of these names come from the Bible. Almost all of them. Okay? Do I enjoy complimenting? That depends on who I'm complimenting. If you deserve to be complimented, then yeah, sure, I like to give compliments to people who deserve them. Let's see, what about the word marvelous? Marvelous comes from the word marvel. To marvel at something means you're filled with wonder. Like, wow, right? It's marvelous. But the word marvel originally means a wonderful story. A wonderful story or legend, like a tale, a myth. That's a marvel. So the word marvel, marvelous, comes from the word marvel, the noun. I'm sorry, the verb, which comes from the word marvel, the noun. Marvelous and wondrous, yeah, they're about the same. They're close to the same. Yeah, about the same. Okay? You found that there are many Russians who were born in the Soviet Union, but they have so many some European names like Mark and Edward. Right. If I had to guess, based on what I know about Russian history and the Orthodox Russian Church, I would guess that it mostly has to do with the Russian Orthodox Church and the history of Russia with the Russian Orthodox Church, and that's why those names became popular at that time. Magnificent comes from the word magna, which means great in Latin. Great. So magnificent is something great. Okay? Venerable. Veneration is, it means honorable. Worthy of respect. It comes from the Latin word venerabilis, which means worthy of respect. Venerari, which means to worship or revere. So to be venerable is an adjective that means to be worthy of respect. And that comes from the original word venerabilis, which also means worthy of respect. Sometimes the words have not changed at all in a long time. This is an example. The word venerable has never changed. It means the same thing now that it did 2,000 years ago. I mean, in Latin, not in English, because there was no English. Not as we know it. Not as we know it. What else? Anybody else? Let's see. Server and waiter. Again, a server is someone who serves, right? To serve. I believe is from the French servir, maybe? Let me see. Yeah, servir, meaning to a duty towards someone, to show devotion to someone. And that comes from the Latin word servire, meaning to be a servant, to be devoted to. And that is related to the word slave. So the word serve and servant actually originally come from the word slave. Yeah. Now, waiter, to wait on someone, the word wait can have two meanings. One meaning means just to wait some time, right? So 10 minutes you're going to sit here, that's waiting, okay? But to wait can also mean to serve or help someone. So if I say, have you waited on that person yet? That means, have you tried to help them yet? Have you offered them help? Have you waited on them yet? So that's why it's called a waiter. Okay? How did I learn all these meanings, stories, and history? A lot of study. I'm a nerd. That's how. I'm a proud nerd. Learning is useful. You should try it sometime. Diligent. The word diligent comes from the Latin word diligentum, which means careful, attentive. So the word dil actually comes from the word dis, which means apart, and legent, the L-I-G-E-N-T part, comes from the Latin word legare, which means to choose. So to be diligent, the original meaning is to choose carefully. Like, do I want this one or do I want that one? That's to be diligent. Now the word diligent means to work hard and to be careful about your work. But the original meaning just means to be careful about choosing. Okay, if you are new and you don't know who I am, hi, my name is Teacher Mark. I am not new. I have been on this app for 12 years. I have been live streaming for 5 years. Okay? And many of you are asking me very simple questions like, how can I be fluent or whatever? If you want those answers, you must do 2 things. 1, you can go to my blog and read. Okay? Go to my blog and read, and you'll find answers about how can I be fluent? How can I think in English? How can I learn vocabulary? How can I shadow someone? All of those are in my blog. Go read it. Then I also have a YouTube channel. On my YouTube channel, I have many videos, hundreds of videos like this one. Hundreds of videos just like this one, and on this you can find lots of answers. Okay, 84,000 people ask me questions. They ask me questions about grammar and vocabulary and pronunciation and reading and writing and listening and speaking and job interviews and IELTS and TOEFL. They ask me questions about everything, and I try to answer them. So, if you come here and you listen and you pay attention, you will hear the answers you need. But if you just want your answers now, then go away. You will not succeed because you want everything now. I have all the answers, but you cannot have them all now. If you want the answers, come, watch, listen, and learn. Okay? Come, watch, listen, and learn. I have been on this app for 12 years. I have been teaching English for a long time. Okay? But every day somebody comes here and says, how can I be fluent, Teacher Mark? That's why I wrote the article. I don't want to answer that question anymore because I have answered that question 1,000,000 times. Okay? So, I do have an answer, but you have to go get it. It's in my blog or it's on my YouTube. Okay? Look, here's my YouTube. And here is my blog. Oh no, sorry, that's my website. There's my website. And there is my blog. Okay? There's my YouTube, there's my website, there's my blog. Okay? Not everybody has a website, but I do. That's how serious I am. Not everybody has a blog, but I do. That's how serious I am. Not everybody has hundreds of hours of videos of teaching, but I do. Not even hundreds, thousands of hours. I have been here teaching on HelloTalk for more than 2,000 hours. No joke. Flossinausinilahilification. That's how you pronounce that word. Flossinausinilahilification. Okay? I was looking younger decades ago. Well, yeah, that's true. I'm an old man now. But being old's not all that bad. It's not all bad. Okay? So, I have been here. Wow, look at this. Do you know how long I have been here today? How long have I been here today? Do you know? How long have I been here this morning? No. I mean just today. Just today. 3 hours. That's right. I've been here for 2 hours and 45 minutes, 46 minutes, 47 minutes. Okay? I've been here answering questions. I've been here talking about the history of words and where they come from, and I only told you this much. Okay? Etymology is a fun little trick. If you learn etymology, it can teach you about the meaning of the word. And did that word change meaning? And what did it originally mean? And maybe there's a cool story. And if there's a cool story with it, then you will remember it. It's easy to remember when it's cool. That's the secret of learning. Some of you have trouble learning because when you learn, you don't know how to learn in a cool way. So your learning is boring, and boring things are easy to forget. Okay? Boring things are easy to forget. Cool things are easy to remember. That's why you should try to make learning cool. All right? That's what I try to do. I try to do that. Okay? All right, everybody. I want to go eat some lunch, so it's time for me to go. But it was fun. So come back and see me again sometime. I'm here Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I'm here almost every day. If I'm busy, I'm not here. Sometimes I'm busy and I can't be here. Sometimes I'm tired and I need a break. Sometimes I'm sick and I can't do it. But I'm here a lot. All right? I'm here a lot. Okay. Have a good morning. Have a good afternoon. Have a good evening, wherever you live in the world. And I will see you guys next time. Okay?